Hello everyone and welcome back to the Common Sense Crypto channel. As with you always, this is Rich doing another video today on XRP. So I hope you're all having a wonderful day today wherever you are in this great world. We're gonna talk about XRP. And this is gonna be part 2. I'm gonna call it implementation and tweaks. Ripple development, an application called Ripplenet that does two key things. It replaces outdated systems like SWIFT and correspondent banking, which are the reason cross-border payments remain slow and inefficient. It leverages XRP, a digital asset, through on-demand liquidity to streamline transactions. How Ripplenet uses XRP for on-demand liquidity. Users fund their accounts at digital asset exchanges. Ripple funds the sending institution's XRP wallet with a predetermined amount of XRP. In order for Ripple to pre-fund the XRP, clients sign a commit to sell agreement to permit them to hold XRP. This is the end game. They want to replace SWIFT. And Ripple's already on that mission. I think that transition is already happening. There's a lot of banks that are now working with Ripple because SWIFT, it's just outdated and it's slow. So when SWIFT is gone, all we will have left is Ripplenet. The timeline aligns too perfectly. 2017, Executive Order 13772. Remember that? That was back when Trump was the president last time around. 2018, Ripple joins Faster Payments Task Force. 2019, Ripplenet expands to over 300 partners. 2020, Bank of England and the IMF start public discussions on CBDCs. 2022 to 2025, full ISO 222 rollout begins. Many banks and institutions were already figuring out the blockchain technology from 2014, but it all came together from 2017. Even back in 2020, the Fed wanted to roll out the digital dollar, but it was too soon back then. That's why everything had to slow down over the past 4 years. But now everything is accelerating again. And Ripple, like I said, during the past 4 years, they went out there and they put rail after rail in place all around the world. And they're still putting rails in place today. And if it's not Ripple directly doing it, it's partners of Ripple. But what about central bank digital currencies? October 15th, 2024. Today at RippleSwell, we're proud to announce our Ripple USD exchange partners. Upon regulatory approval, RLUSD will be globally available for institutions and users from Uphold, Bitstamp, Bitso, MoonPay, and so on. They launched RLUSD as an alternative to a central bank digital currency. And I even said back then, anyone find it ironic that Ripple first mentioned RLUSD in June of 2024, and they also met with Trump in the summer of 2024, and you still don't think this was all planned? Trump even said no CBDC, but a private stablecoin is still digital money. Connect the dots and you will see the plan unfold. And I even asked Grok back then, when did Ripple first mention RLUSD? June 2024, summer of last year. You know, I think what needed to happen was they had to pivot away from a central bank digital currency because a lot of countries, they're going to find it hard for their citizens to go along with the central bank digital currency. So they had to come up with an alternative to offer. That's why RLUSD was born. Announcement: Microchip implant is now implementing Ripple payment systems in the product. This means that the microchip owners will not be needing to connect their microchip to their bank accounts anymore. I covered that multiple times on this channel. And I even said I'm never getting that chip. But I don't think the chip is the mark of the beast. And I'm going to explain why. Think about it. You could take the chip out of you. I'm sure there would be doctors out there that would also remove the chip if you wanted it removed. Then you could get it put into a necklace or whatever, and you could still buy all the things without taking the mark. I think it has to be more permanent. I think it needs to be like this right here. DNA on Chain Lab. Intake begins in Zimbabwe. Enrollment has officially started. Anchoring genomic identity data on the XRP ledger. Africa's decentralized rollout is underway. I'm never putting my DNA on the XRP ledger because you can't erase that. Once it gets put onto the blockchain, it's permanently there. So if Ripplenet is the new mark of the beast system, your DNA would tie you directly to the beast system. There would be no removing it. I think originally they were thinking of the chip implant, and a lot of people associated that because of reading the Bible. It's going to be in the hand or the forehead. But maybe the forehead wasn't exactly what they were thinking in the Bible. Well, what was said in the Bible. Maybe it was more about scanning your eyes. You know, that's becoming a big thing now as well. This to use AI to monitor global bank transactions for money laundering. This is why they're going to tell you you need to have a digital ID, because they're going to be monitoring everything anyway. But they always cite money laundering and know your customer. With the rise of AI, people are going to have to prove that they're humans very soon. And the rise of AI is not that far away. People keep thinking it's like a decade out, but it's going to happen much sooner. And Agenda 2030 can only be enforced in a cashless economy. In cash, we don't know who is using a $100 bill today. A key difference with central bank digital currency is the central bank will have absolute control and the technology to enforce that. That came from the BIS. The BIS was always pushing central bank digital currency, digital ID, and so on. And the BIS is also the one creating all of this technology around Ripplenet. They're the ones writing the white paper showing it, how they plan on rolling out this new system based on Ripplenet technology. The dystopia of Agenda 2030, global digital surveillance for a social credit system, can only be enforced in a cashless society. Look who else said it. World Economic Forum. Benefits of a cashless society. ECB, European Central Bank. What's Christine Lagarde always pushing for? A cashless society. That's their end game. Because as long as cash is in existence, you can opt out of this system. You could go and shop with cash and they can't track your transactions. But they're all pushing in this direction. Even with the rise of the digital dollar, that's going to be the beginning of the end for the US dollar in paper form. And you could see it already because they're already testing this out in other places. Convenience is the lure, but your biometric digital ID will be used as your carbon wallet, connected to CBDC in a cashless economy to become a social credit system. Even that world coin, they were going around and scanning people's retinas. Remember that? And again, that's all being tracked on the blockchain. And they always tell you it's so that that there's no chance somebody could steal your money because you'd have to be the one standing there scanning your eyes. for the system to allow the transaction to go through. This is why I said it might not be in the forehead. Maybe it was always your retinas. We really don't know. Mouthpiece Media and Visa Card pushing cashless society. The war on cash intensifies. Visa offers restaurants $10,000 to go cashless. Remember when that was happening back in 2023, when Starbucks was also going cashless as well, pushing for that? And I think it's because everybody wants this. They want this incentive right here. UBI is coming. They call it universal high income. On the surface, abundance. Underneath, the golden cage. Let's decode. Some people are starting to see through this. Everybody else is rallying for this. They want this to happen. But the trap is reliance on the government, plus loss of sovereignty, programmable credits, and spending restrictions, health, housing, and food, tied to obedience, soft walls, velvet bars, the golden cage. Whenever they promote high income, it sounds great, but in reality, we're not going to get that. You're going to get universal basic income coming from the government, and it's going to be based on your education level. It's going to be based on what job you did previously before AI took your job. So anybody rallying for this, anybody thinking this is a good idea, I think they're missing the much bigger picture. And like I said, I don't think that it's going to be in the form of a chip. I think it's going to be more your DNA on the blockchain. This way, the system knows whether or not you are in the system. So if you're going to go do a transaction, most likely it would already know, most likely through a Retina scan. I don't think it's going to be in chip form, though. I think it's also going to be something that people have to sign up for. In other words, you cannot buy food, you cannot buy this, you cannot buy that unless you put your DNA onto the blockchain, because it has to be a choice. The person has to decide whether or not they're going to do this. It can't be something that you could be tricked into, is what I'm saying. And this is just my theory, by the way. You know, I just wanted to show you what we know so far and where I think this could be going. But again, I'm going to wrap up this video. I want to thank you all for watching. I appreciate all of you. I'll see you in the next one. Have a great night.